Who Knows God? A novel by Leonard Smith. Copyright 2009, Audiobook Entertainment. Edited by James R. Adams and Bernard A. Blake. Cover design by Chiquina Pena. Soundtrack by Maurice Better the Producer Bowles. Also from Leonard Smith, 49% this, 49% that, and 2% other. Coming soon, Who Knows God 2, available on Spotify and Audible. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents either are products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. And any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, business establishments, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Foreword. You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. They are from the world and therefore speak from the viewpoint of the world, and the world listens to them. We are from God, and whoever knows God listens to us. The Holy Bible, First Book of John, chapter 4, verse 4 through 6. Bismillahir Rahim, in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Preface. They gonna call us some niggas, some crazy ass niggas. Jason Jordan. Date, December 18th, 2008. Here's to family, unity, and never having to sell a dime bag or anything ever again. Stump raised his paper cup of coffee and took a sip with the intent of warming his body from the chill of old man winter. Jason rose from his seat atop a newspaper on the steps. He patted his good friend gently on his shoulders before sneaking past him to look out of the staircase windows onto Madison Avenue. God's green earth, he said. Stump chuckled to himself. Green? All I see around here is black and brown. Jason shoved his hands in his pockets and remained silent for a moment, still looking out the window. That's crazy, right? He asked. Yeah, but after tonight, you can walk away from all this good old ghetto project shit. You're done here. Victorious, brother, Stump said. Jason laughed privately yet again as he massaged his newly grown beard. Run and hide, huh? He asked. Stump tried to rejuvenate Jason's lackluster mood, although he knew he'd be fine sooner than later. I wouldn't call it hiding. You work hard for what you wanted, brother. Nobody can deny you that, especially none of these judgmental fucks out here. Remember that scene in Scarface? Jason asked, when Tony was barking on the people at the dinner table? You need people like me, so you can point your fucking fingers and say that's the bad guy. Stump smiled in familiarity. He employed a phony Cuban accent and played along. What that make you? Good? Good? They both said. The two shared a moment of laughter and contemplation before Jason picked up on a sharp quivering vibration through the air. That's probably Mark's calling, he said. Stump leisurely removed his cell phone from the leather holster attached to his belt. Peace, he said into the receiver. Jason lent an ear to Stump's conversation while staring at the other side of the projects through the staircase window. Things certainly changed since they were kids running around down there, but most of it was the same. Bet. We leaving now then, Stump said as he flipped his phone closed and turned to his friend. We good, Tekk. Before he could place his phone back on his side, Jason started down the steps. The large man posted at the break in the flight below saw them coming and began descending into the building as well. What about us? Stump asked as he dipped around a puddle of urine, trying to keep pace. What about us? Jason asked, moving as if he were racing against time. What you think they're gonna say about us? I mean, people damn sure ain't gonna call us good. We're black and we're Muslims in America. Jason looked back at Stump, and in doing so, he caught a glance at the face under the hood of the man who was trailing Stump closely. They gonna call us some niggas, bro. Jason got to the fourth floor landing, and to Stump's dismay, he showed no signs of slowing down. Some crazy-ass niggas, he said. 12:16 a.m. the same night. You can get out of here, baby, Jason said to his wife in the driver's seat as he slammed his door shut and got situated. What about Gwinn? She asked. She said she not ready to come, he said. LaRonda looked at him strangely. Jason shrugged it off as if he didn't feel like getting into it. He turned back to Stump, who was sitting next to him. I heard your man Iron Mike say one time, he was talking about Tupac in an interview for a documentary. He was like, Most people aren't good. They're just well behaved. So you want me to drive to the house now? LaRonda asked for clarity. Yes. Without Gwinn? Yes, LaRonda, she don't want to come right now. What you want me to do? He answered in a state of frustration. All right. She shook her head as if she had more to say, but declined as there were company present. See, Tupac, Jason returned his attention back to Stump. I ain't know the man, but I would assume he was a good dude. If you listen to most of the content of his music, you see he speaks at least some degree of truth. The black man's plight, widespread poverty, police brutality, things that, if you ask me, ultimately cost him his life. Between listening and thought, Stump caught a glance at Architekk's debut album, laying in the compartment behind the gear shifter, just as the luxury sedan began to roll away from the curb. You forgot to give Gwinn her CD, he informed Jason. Oh shit, I need to give that to her before we leave. Jason yelled over the Papoose mixtape blasting from the stereo. Hold on, baby, don't leave yet. He pulled out his phone and keyed up Margot, who was in the car behind him. Step out, I gotta go back in the building, he said before putting his phone back away. He turned back to his friend. What you thinking about? One's path, whether it will ultimately cost one their life, Stump said. Well, that's a good thing, right? The Holy Bible instructs us that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Jason looked back at his security personnel filing out behind him and readjusted the pistol in his waistline. But we damn sure gonna find out, brother. We damn sure gonna find out. Stay here, I'll be right back. Jason stepped out of the cozy C-70 interior into the frigid Harlem night and addressed the squad like a lieutenant. You stay here. You come with me, he said to the 6'4", 300-plus pounder known as Big Easy before they headed up the walkway. Jason noticed a familiar sports car parked in the lot in front of Building 1694 that incited question after question in his head. Peace, black man. Peace. Jason reached out and embraced Hakeem, who was smiling ear to ear, squeezing his hand and bringing him in for a semi-hug. Hakeem spoke in a private tone. I just heard the album, brother. Alhamdulillah. That was a mighty blow you struck. Jason smiled and turned away in an attempt to be modest. Hakeem pulled him closer and forced him to look in his eyes. You hear me, bro? A mighty blow. But you know Babylon gonna take interest now. You know that. I know, Jason affirmed. Well then, peace be with you, brother. Peace be with you. Hakeem tossed his hood back over his head and kept stepping, as did Jason and Big Easy. Jason had thought after thought racing across his brain. The most pressing issue on his mind was the talk he had with Stump in the car. He was eager to get back so he could put the abstract random thoughts he put forward to a complete circle of knowledge for his good friend. His nerves wouldn't allow him to remain silent any longer, and he placed the information in Big Easy for whatever it was worth. The path back to Allah is a supreme achievement. The struggle of life is so that God, your creator, may test you to see how close back to him you could get, if you so choose. Big Easy looked at him strangely as he carried on. Satan, Jason chuckled to himself. Satan, after God gave him respite until the day of judgment, promised to fuck with us men while we were here on earth. Remember, Satan refused to bow before Adam because he felt like he was better than him. Big Easy didn't bother responding as they scaled the few steps in front of the building. And by, here the fuck we are, Jason concluded. Thanks for letting me know that, Big Easy said, uninterested. When they entered the building, Jason headed straight for the B staircase and waved the former amateur bodybuilder over. Come on, man. I want to see what your win looking like. Your security. You just can't look tough, you know? They pushed and shoved one another as they raced up the first flight of steps. At the first landing, Jason began to separate himself in an all-out sprint to the 7th floor. He hunched over in the hallway and grabbed his knees, thoroughly depleted as he waited for Big Easy to arrive. I ain't... Big Easy gasped for air as he came to a halt. I ain't no damn Usain Bolt. Jason tried to make small talk as he gathered himself. Inshallah, we'll be home before the sunrise, he said, still folded over trying to catch his breath. Press the elevator. I ain't gonna be long. Big Easy monotonously pulled at the door handles to the A elevator to the right. I think this one is still out from earlier, he said as he pressed the button between the doors. Jason hadn't moved on yet, although he did stand erect to rub his chest. I gotta stop smoking. Hollis is already leaving my ass in the dust. The transparent glass on the elevator door illuminated as the elevator car arrived to the tone of a light ring. Jason began walking up the hallway to Miss Ruiz's apartment. Oh, shit. Big Easy instinctively drew his firearm. Jason turned quickly and did the same, coming back and pointing into the open elevator. Oh, shit. Let's get out of here, Big Easy insisted. A young man's corpse lay face down on the elevator floor, engulfed in a pool of his own blood. A gunshot wound to the near side of the boy's hood was prevalent. Jason stood in a trance. Big Easy scanned the hallway with his weapon still drawn. Tekk, we gotta go, he insisted as Jason was frozen, in a state to which he was clearly at a loss for words. You know this nigga? Big Easy asked. Unit 1, Jason Jordan. Daddy, I'm not playing. It's very important to me. Gwinn Sessoms. Date, June 29th, 2005. Look, lady, you're going to have to borrow the money from a family member, your boyfriend, or something. But we not playing no more. Our client need their money today. Oh, no speaking no English. No speaking no damn English. Jason became so riled that he was dangerously close to cursing the caller out. Miss, you was just speaking the Queen's English when I told you my name was Ralph, he said when he reached to the top of his drawer for his pen to cross off her name from his prospects list. Come on now, cut it out. We need a payment from you. No English, the woman insisted. Jason threw up his hands in surrender. No English, huh? That's your story and you sticking to it. See. All right, Crystal, from freaking Chicago, who don't speak no damn English. I'll update my files that you're refusing to cooperate with my client in this matter. And thank you, bye. She disconnected the call. Jason notated the account and looked over to the cubicle beside him. Were you listening to that one? Yeah, she was a deadbeat. You should have let me do a second voice for you. Hello, ma'am. This is Jason's supervisor. I understand that you were looking to resolve this issue before the judge. Jason sat back in his chair and flipped through his audio electronics magazine. We can't take these people to court, man. You know that. Yeah, but the debtor doesn't. Quality assurance isn't even listening half of the morning. You can tell these people we're going to take them to jail, for Christ's sake. Repo their cars. Fair Debt Collections Practices Act my ass. We're here to get a bonus check. Josh stood up and looked at the payment board in front of their payday loans department. You need to at least get a payment on the board, Jason. Management isn't going to keep you around much longer if you're not getting in numbers every day. Jason placed his headset on mute and stood from his chair to relieve his legs from the sting of inactivity. Fuck that board, he said as he stretched out his upper body. Jason caught eyes with Ebony from the auto department, who was looking in their direction from the top of her cubicle a few feet away. She's got the hots for you, bro. Josh said, smirking and reeking of immaturity. A tall, sharply dressed man stepped onto the collections floor and walked directly up to Terry, the payday loan supervisor, whispering something into his ear before entering Jason's aisle. These punks got the hot for me, too, Jason said to Josh before the gentleman reached his cubicle. Hi, Mr. Jordan. You want to put your headset in after call and come with me for a sec? Jason tossed his headset on the side of the computer monitor near the training manual. What y'all want? He asked as he turned around with a grill. Yeah, we need to speak to you about your performance. 5:38 p.m. the same day. Building 55, apartment 16M. It was the projects, but it was home. When Jason and Denise exchanged vows in 96, his mother expressed her drunken sentiments to the dismay of nearly everyone in attendance. They ain't no damn soulmates. They just going half on the rent. My son's soul is in the projects. I don't know about that wannabe prissy bitch. Jason turned 33 years old this year. His had been a long and painful life thus far. 2 near-death experiences and years of going around in circles, all of which rendered the man known around NYC as Architekk primarily and exclusively on God's side. The more he got into his religious studies, the wider his eyes were open, the more he got settled into grant projects. The poor are rich in spirit, and there's plenty poor in Harlem. Hollis was protected and respected in the neighborhood, and the same held true on the other side of town with his other children. Jason decided that if it were intended for him to leave the hood, God would show him a way. Denise was a woman on a career track. She was hired by her alma mater, Hunter University, as a temporary advisor for the Office of Admissions in 2003. 2 years and as many pay raises later, Denise now had her sights set outside of the concrete jungle, as her dedication to the job and sister swagger was something the institution had been looking for. Jason threw his keys on the kitchen counter and walked into the living room. He flopped onto the couch and enjoyed a rare moment of silence before pulling himself up and into the bathroom and cleansing himself for a prayer. It was a childish and extensive battle, but Jason got the house vote to utilize the extra room in the back as an apartment recording studio. Denise wanted to use the space as a study, suggesting that it would add class and substance to the home. Jason based the argument, which was bought before their daughter Hollis, on the fact that a studio would give him at least some peace of mind, as well as increase the chances that he'll stay out of their busy lives. 2 months later, he was in his home studio recording his first album. Jason removed his prayer mat from between the subwoofer and the edge of the trackboard. He dried his feet with a designated towel, then prostrated himself before the Lord. When he walked out of the Debt Collections Inc. high-rise earlier, he did so with a final warning notice in his hand and uncertainty in his heart. He was stressed out, but his faith and belief in God had him on a particular path for a particular reason, rendered him to his knees anyway. After the prayer, Jason opened his eyes to what seemed like a new day, renewed inspiration. The first thing he saw was an active screensaver message on his computer monitor. Patiently persevere. He stood to his feet, walked over to the trackboard and wiggled the computer mouse to expose his electronic desktop. He clicked on the play icon on a Pro Tools application, then turned around to find his wife waving her hands, apparently for his attention. "How long you been there?" he asked. "I know you heard me. What you doing home so early?" Denise asked. Jason gave her a faint head nod to acknowledge her and nothing further. Any other response he would have had for her questioning him, as if he were their 16-year-old daughter, would have been a precursor to an argument. His words and actions were the only things that Jason seemed to have control over nowadays, and he came to understand that there was tremendous benefits to keeping them in check. "I told you, you need to leave that voodoo stuff alone, Jay." "How about hello?" Jason exploded. "How you doing?" Or some shit like that before you go into full bitch mode when you get home, Denise. She responded with feigned amusement. Bitch, that's nice. I see you've been working on your vocabulary for your music's sake." She left the room and went into the bathroom adjacent to the studio. "And my day was great, thanks for asking," she said, staring into the mirror on the medicine cabinet. "Today I found out that over 90% of my students finished the semester with a 2.5 or better. That's considered good academic standing." Jason began closing all the applications on his computer and shut down his recording equipment. He planned on recording a song that he was working on in his head since last night, but that inspiration was dead. All he wanted now was to get as far away from his wife as possible. "I'm going to the store. You want something?" he asked. "Oh, you're trying to get away from me now? You came to that conclusion pretty swiftly. You're just a plain old genius, ain't you?" Denise didn't bother responding. She continued to remove her makeup with a secret smile across her face. Jason grabbed his wallet and light off the trackboard. "And I know what good academic standing is, Niecy. You forgot I went to college too?" "Well, the way you play around with all this silly little music crap all day, one would never know." 6:13 p.m. the same night. Jason picked up a 2-gallon bottle of water and a bag of peanuts as he reached the front counter to the store. "Peace, and let me get 2 vanilla Dutches and a bottle of aspirin, please, Muhammad." "And let me get 4 Dutches, Ock," a young female demanded as she got to the counter. She looked over at Jason. "What up, Tekk?" Her incense rendered a shake of her head in self-correction. "I mean, Mr. J. You got my album from MSG, right?" Jason asked as he ripped open his 50-cent bag of peanuts. "That's word to Andre. I was just listening to it before I came downstairs." That's peace. "Well, then call me Tekk," he said, smiling. LaRonda was wearing a gaudy pair of door-knocker earrings, white leggings, and a Michael Jordan college jersey that was stretched out from the bottom over her broad hips. The two of them left the store and walked up the block together, as LaRonda was going to meet her girls in front of Jason's building. "So what's your favorite track on the album?" It's between the light and the truth and the proof. It depends on how I'm feeling when I press play. But everything on there is tough. I don't skip no tracks," LaRonda said. It was a hot Friday Eve in Harlem. Groups of kids were creeping all about. NYPD sirens were screaming, and Harlemites were dressed up to go out. Through their short conversation, LaRonda had proven to be a listener with a common ear, which came to Jason's surprise as he had prejudged her by the company she kept. He assumed, with good measure, that she was a member of the Jessica Street gang. She was often with Connie, Grant Project's Jessica Superior, and LaRonda wore more Carolina blue than a little bit, the crew's color. Whatever verse when he said, "Back when I was nothing, you made a brother feel like he was something. That's why I'm with you to this day, boo, no frontin'." Buck joined Stump reciting his favorite hip-hop verse in front of the building. "Even when the skies were gray, you would rub me on my back and say, baby, it'll be okay." Yeah, that was the first verse. That was tough. The entire NYCMC crew was out, and one could tell by the cars double parked on the curb. Stump, who got his name from his short, linebacker-like physique, was a top-notch producer and audio engineer. Buck was an in-house writer for the music group and local hustler. Jason's memory was selective, but one thing he kept with him was Buck's response when he asked if he would join the music group. "I don't know what they teaching these little young niggas around here today, but when we was coming up, they taught us that life is what you make it, so we gonna make something of it. A child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. God smiling on you, but he's frowning too, because only God knows what you'll go through." Stump, Stacky, and Buck produced a lackluster response to Margot's choice. "Man, Margs, you always gotta come with some old shit. Go ahead with all that. That's because I'm an older, smarter motherfucker." Margot turned to Jason, who was leaning against the railing, rhyming underneath his breath. "These young boys don't know nothing." Seemingly agitated, Calm interjected, "Yeah, that was that shit. Don't matter if it was old." Stack returned to the world from 5 straight minutes of texting on his phone. "Margot could completely make some shit up and you'll say that's that shit. Get out of here with all that. The hottest hip-hop verse of all time is the last verse of It Ain't Hard to Tell. The second verse of Girls, Girls, Girls. Beans, The Truth, third verse." This particular crew went all the way back from the beginning. Before the parks and the projects were reconstructed, before the current mayoral administration, and before the gentrification changed the face of Harlem, there was their affiliation. The name New York City Music Cartel was Stacky's brainchild. It came to him after he heard the unmastered copy of Buck's first mixtape, which 2 weeks' worth of trap money went to fund. The lyrics blasting from Buck's Audi commanded a tentative ear. LaRonda became annexed into a crowd of young ladies when her and Jason got back to 126th Street. Jason could see her a few feet away, nodding her head to the floor and pointing him out to one of her friends. "That's him," he read her lips. Respect. One of the things Jason Jordan was in search of from the time he recorded his first song in Stump's old studio in the Bronx. And here it was on a silver platter. Respect. The crew was on their way to Club Barrel to party and bullshit for the next 5 or so hours. Jason didn't go out much. Consequently, his music wasn't built for the nightclubs, but rather for the streets and the individual listeners. A track that he recorded less than a week ago bumping in the projects on a night like this was a small victory in his cause. "What up, you broke-ass nigga?" Bump yelled to the driver of the black Altima that pulled up and parked beside his car. "Why don't you go get that bum-ass car washed or waxed or something? That shit look bad." LaRonda and her girls started walking towards Jason. He grew uneasy as he knew they were probably coming over to discuss his music, which was something that he tried to avoid at all costs. "Nigga, who you calling broke? I just lost 3 stacks in a dice game and I'm still buying out the bar tonight. Everything getting shut down when I walk in the spot. Matter of fact, hold on. Tekk, my sister want to get your CD. You got a copy on you?" LaRonda asked when she reached Jason. "Nah, I don't, but you should go to Marg's and get that tomorrow, though," he said as he handed her a business card from his wallet. "He still got copies in the shop." "All right, bet. She dapped his hand as if he were one of their sisters, keeping their 2 middle fingers folded in ritualistic form. "Don't be piecing him up like that. You don't have no fucking discretion. Go over there." LaRonda barked at her younger set sister, then turned back to Jason as cool as can be. "I'm sorry, these little girls are so stupid sometimes." The young man who arrived in an Altima walked back to his car and reached through his open window and turned the volume up to his stereo. "You hear that, boy? That's that good bold shit right there. I just got these put in. This ain't that trash you call a system. Turn that shit off." LaRonda looked at Jason with a different level of comfort. "See, I was trying to get you that extra cell. You need to put me on payroll. She joked, popping the gum in her mouth just about the whole time. Yo, chill, Buck said. That's my man Tekk shit plan. Don't disrespect like that. So what? That's your man. Stop acting like a little girl. Yo, homie, didn't I say cut it out? Jason let Buck handle the politics of that situation. He didn't have any reaction towards the young man's comment, as the only disrespect that he intended was towards Buck's stereo. He continued conversing with LaRonda. You going out with them tonight? Tekk asked. Nah, I don't do the whole club scene thing, she answered. Buck, I wasn't even talking about your man shit. Ain't nobody think about that nigga. Before he could understand what kind of trouble he dug himself into by appearing to disrespect a grimy Grant native, Buck squared him up and swallowed him in a hail of body blows. Oh shit, fuck him up. That's right, fuck him up. Calm, Margot's right-hand man, hopped off of the hood of the Jeep he was sitting on and ran over to apply a vicious headlock, and he did so without disturbing the cigarette wedged between his lips. Applying crushing pressure, Calm dropped his body weight to his victim, folding him to the ground. Margot flashed from around the Jeep, running relentlessly towards his target, catching him with a right hook as he arrived, forcing Calm to release him to the concrete. Yeah, fuck him up. Check his pockets. Check his pockets. It was all construction boots and the bottom of basketball sneakers from there. They stomped him out until he was motionless and seemingly on cue. Everyone evacuated the scene. Buck to his Audi, Stacky to his Beamer, Margot and Calm hopped in a black Durango, and some of the girls were packed in a beige Jetta, and everyone else scattered through the projects. T-Rock from 135th drove off in an Altima that the unlucky, unconscious fellow on the ground pulled up in. 11:32 p.m. the same night. For the past 6 years, Jason's Friday nights were geared towards his music. Facing unemployment for the second time in as many years rendered this Friday's studio session all the more critical. Jason was a Muslim by faith, by the inspiration of the Holy Quran, which among many things teaches that God created the heavens and earth for just ends. Once Jason fully understood that particular lesson, he began to view his craft differently. God inspired the music, and the artist known as Architekk was charged with capturing as much of it as possible and sending it through the microphone. Jason felt in his heart that God's music never stopped, but rather that God provided periods of enlightenment, an open ear to his never-ending party, or a window of opportunity. This was one of those nights when that window was wide open. Inspired by the things he'd seen on the street, at his place of employment, inspired by life, Jason entered the studio in the back of his apartment, closed the door, and found the flow. July 10th, 2005. All right, you ready to do this? Jason asked. Hollis was gasping for air with both her hands planted on her hips, walking aimlessly about the track. Daddy, I need another minute. Come on, honey. You got to get in them blocks. I need you to be able to do this now. You ain't going to have time to rest like that at the next level, Jason said, forcing the issue. Hollis turned and walked away, still fighting to catch her breath. I need another minute. All right, take your time. We got all day. Nope, nothing's at stake here. Hollis had her buttons, and her father knew exactly how to push them. She inhaled deeply and loosened her body by shaking out her hands from the wrists and bouncing side to side. Let's go, she said. You ready? She focused on the damp, vast path ahead of her as it had been drizzling all morning. Let's do it, she said, stretching her neck to either side. Jason held the stopwatch suspended around his neck to his line of sight and extended his left arm. On your mark. 9:20 a.m. the same day. What, you and Mommy just completely stopped talking to each other? Hollis ascertained that she navigated the family sedan away from their designated practice field on Randall's Island. Jason tried to raise his kids to speak their minds at all times and to be straightforward as possible. On this particular day, he wished that his oldest daughter had a little bit more subtlety, as he didn't have an answer ready for her. Your mother and I are just going in two different directions in our lives, sweetie. Go ahead, stupid, Hollis yelled at the vehicle trying to cut in front of her. Relax, honey. What's wrong with you? She pumped the brakes as the light on 8th turned from yellow to red. Stupid-ass immigrants. Yo, watch your mouth. You got some damn nerves talking about immigrants. I gotta get you your own Quran. It's about time for you now anyway. Daddy, what? You just gonna sit up there and work on your music and not work on your marriage? Hollis asked. Jason turned in the seat and looked her up and down abruptly. Excuse me? Y'all not even sleeping in the same bed no more. I know that can't be the way. Hollis, you better watch your damn mouth. I'll still pop your ass, Jason insisted. Daddy, I'm not playing. It's very important to me. July 18th, 2005. Hi, Mr. Jameson? Jason asked. Mr. Jameson's not here. Who is this? This is John from up the block. What's going on? John from... Oh, what's up, man? I thought you were one of them damn bill collectors. Sir, we're going to take you to jail. This is Mr. Jordan with Debt Collections, Inc. You have to pay my client today or this is going down. I'm going to send the sheriff to your house. Keep playing with me. Jason could hear the shock in the gentleman's voice. He was hesitant as he spoke. Mister, I know I said I was going to pay the bill, but I got to pay my lights. My kids ain't going to have no lights. Jason's instinct told him to ease up, but it was closeout week, and he was one of the few reps in his department who hadn't reached his collections goal for the month. Sir, that's not my client's problem. You should have thought about that before you took the credit card and went berserk at the mall. Oh, my God. God ain't got nothing to do with this. You did it. Pay this bill, we taking you to jail. Jason knew the longer he allowed the debtor to sit in silence, the smaller his chances of turning this into a cash cow were. Okay, sir. Me and the sheriff gonna see you in the morning. Kiss your grandkids goodbye tonight, because you ain't gonna see them once you get processed in the morning. Okay, mister, I'll pay the bill. Jason was momentarily shocked. He hadn't got a payment in so long that he forgot how to go for the hard close. All right, you gonna pay it? All right, hold on. Let me see how my supervisor's willing to accept that at this point. He placed the call on hold and looked to his side. Josh, close this guy out for me, please. Josh scooted his chair over to Jason's cubicle and plugged in his headset. What's the situation? He asked. Try to get the balance in full or check series, but I need a certified payment today one way or the other. Mr. Jordan, may I have a word with you? Someone from Human Resources snuck up behind Jason. The rep was staring into his computer monitor and looking over his workstation before he escorted him into the training room at the back of the 17th floor. Hi, Jason. This is Pete from Bedded Credit, our client. Pete and his team are in this week randomly screening phone calls to make sure that we're complying with their standards as well as abiding by the FDCPA. Pete interjected. Jason, we were listening to that call you were just on. You want to tell us what that was about? What you mean what that was about? It's about me going hard for my goal. Do you understand that you violated several laws outlined by the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act? The HR rep asked Jason in a manner which he found condescending. Mr. Jordan, I'm not sure that we should maintain our affiliation. That one phone call could cost Bedded Credit big bucks if that man decides to press charges. My man, your top reps on the floor break the law on every call that they're fortunate enough to get an actual person on. Y'all just gonna single me out? I'm sorry, Jason. We've been listening to calls all morning, and yours has been by far the most offensive we've come across. 11:58 p.m. the same day. Stump mashed his hefty fingers into his wireless joystick as he jolted to either side of his mother's worn-out leather couch. Kobe advances up court. Kobe shakes his bum out his shoes. Kobe pulls up. Jason sat in the corner trying to appear as interested in the video game as possible for the sake of blending in. Normally, he would be sitting at his desk waiting for the dialer to send a call through or working his East Coast accounts. But it was a new day. Kobe scores! That's my son! That's my son! Buck flipped his controller at the television in frustration as he had just lost the Stump again for the third time today. That's my son right there. Give me my money, Stump demanded. They hadn't even had breakfast yet, and some of them were already down a day's worth of trap money gambling on video games. The neighborhood stars, the hustlers, the products they were slinging sold themselves. They were just playing pitch and catch with the customers. They all worked off their phones, had steady clientele, and they all liked to gamble. The hustlers had the luxury of time that the average working person didn't. That's why they all looked so good and laughed at seemingly anything. Jason hadn't exactly shooken his working man demeanor yet. He was wearing an old Echo sweater and a pair of gray sweatpants that Denise got him from VIM. He was quiet, hunched over in the seat with a serious rigor across his face. What's good, Tekk? Why you look so tense, my nig? Stack asked while checking a message on his cell phone. I'm good, fam. I'm just running through the numbers in my head, that's all. Jason Jordan was through with the straight and narrow. He'd been through job after job since leaving college after 2 years. There was nothing there for a man of his sort. No sense of peace or true productivity. Even when he landed what most people in his neck of the woods considered a good job, he felt trapped. There was never quite enough money to make him feel a sense of security, and there was never enough time to do anything besides work. The co-workers, the commute, the routines, he was leaving it all behind for good. Today, Jason was waiting on Calm to return with a quarter-pound of lime green Arizona weed. He had a new plan. Jason paid $250 for the weed. He had $423 cash remaining from his last paycheck and over $2,000 coming back from his 401k, which he thought long and hard about, but was cashing in. He was taking things into his own hands, putting up his very last to bring his second album to life and building on a music group that he created alongside the release of his first album. So what's the plan? How you gonna get that money, boy? Stacky asked as he finally put his phone away. I'm gonna bring that quarter-pound back to 640 real quick. Bring each ounce back to 160, then I'll re-up. I have 190 left. I'll put 110 to that, then holler at y'all for the ounce of the piff and bring that back to 700. Stacky employed the ambient air as a chalkboard. That's 1340 from 250. Stacky slapped his diamond-studded fist into his open hand. Boom. Boom, Tekk said. August 9th, 2005. A woman draped in rags kindly opened the front door to MSG for Jason. Come on, Tekk. I know you got something good for me today. Let me go in and get my lesson. I'll holler at you when I come out, Jason said as he entered his friend's small retail store on 113th Street. He could hear Margot running the session behind a stacked pile of sweaters on a clearance table toward the back. It don't matter. How you gonna tell you it don't matter? What in the fuck is that, beloved? It don't matter. That's what he said, Darnell, Margot's 13-year-old nephew, said as he shrugged his shoulders. What y'all talking about? Jason asked to get caught up to speed on the politics of the day. Margot, Calm, Daryl, and one of Daryl's friends from school were sprawled about in a semicircle. Preacher man gonna tell my nephew that Jesus' childhood is missing from the Bible because it don't matter. I should go down there and give his lying ass a piece of my mind. Margot would focus on Jason as if he remembered something. Matter of fact, Tekk, tell my nephew why Jesus' childhood is missing from our Holy Bible. Without hesitation, Jason got right into it. The church rewrote and recomposed the Bible, removing all information that would make Jesus look like a human being. They didn't want you to understand that Jesus was just a man, just like Moses, just like Abraham, Noah, Muhammad, David, Jacob, just like you, young blood. The Holy Bible is for you. Jason took a hold of the Bible that Margot was holding. This is your history, the history of your brothers and sisters. He grew more excited by the moment as he moved to the center of the circle. If you know your history, get the knowledge of yourself, and your black ass is still living to process that shit, you'll understand life, nature, and your position in relation to that nature. You will understand that God is with you, and you will move accordingly. Daryl stepped forward and engaged himself, reassuring Jason that he was being clear with the youth. Well, what am I going to do? I mean, what God want from me? Anything you do in Allah's name is acceptable. There's 7 firmaments, rank and order given to all things. You're going to land somewhere. Yes, there's an active holy war and God needs soldiers, but he also needs nurses, water boys, spectators, shit like that. Least you be a pussy, beloved, Margot interjected. The group exploded with laughter, all except Margot, who brandished a hard, obscure grin that could only be manufactured in Harlem. Margot usually fueled himself with energy drinks and cigarettes during the day, as he usually worked on developing and expanding his business at night. One could see the lack of rest in his eyes. Through the aura of jubilation, Margot hammered his point home. True righteousness takes courage. Don't walk through this earth all the days of your life like a bitch. Jason left the store and dropped $1 into the homeless woman's cup that opened the door for him. What's the word for the day, Tekk? I see you got something good. You glowing, she said. Jason stayed put for a moment, posting his back to one of the store windows. He looked up Madison Avenue and searched for beat-walking cops and other potential hazards to his lifestyle. The word for the day is fight. Whether heavily or lightly armed, one must fight evil in the name of the Lord, he said before stepping off. August 22nd, 2005. Jason, I'm leaving you. Yeah? Jason asked carelessly while counting out the crumbled $5 and $10 bills that he pulled out of his pocket onto the trackboard. What you waiting for? He said, smiling with hazy, half-closed eyelids. Denise walked over, wearing a silk pullover garment that stretched just below her waist, revealing her long, healthy legs. Her deep brown hair was tied with a silk scarf. Denise was 5'5" and brown-toned, with well-endowed breasts that Jason still liked to taste every now and then. She sat on his lap and looked him tenderly, yet seductively in the eyes. You don't care if I leave you? She asked as she wrapped her legs around him. Jason looked away as he had begun to rise in his pants, and he knew the significance of this conversation would be lost if passion took over. If you feel like you could do better, you're going to have to make your moves, right? Denise tried unsuccessfully to read his face. She kissed her husband tenderly on the lips and grazed a soft vagina along his stomach where it was resting. Jason could smell her sweet body. She planted a softer, sweeter kiss, and he began to reciprocate. She leaned back across the trackboard and waited for her husband to take her in any manner he saw fit. He removed his shirt as it had suddenly gotten his way. He spread her legs and buried his head beneath the garment, using his brute strength to pull her closer to his face. He slithered his tongue around the side of her panties and licked whatever he could to his wife's delight. She grabbed either side of his head and pulled his dreads uncontrollably, squeezing the side of his face with her thighs. When Jason finally left his zone, he realized that he had forced Denise to explode in his hands. He looked up to find her looking down at him, with sweat boiling from her forehead and still trying to catch her breath. She dropped her legs from his shoulders and grabbed at the crotch of his jeans. You don't want to finish? She asked. He rubbed his face and wrung her juices out of his mustache and beard as he stood to his feet. Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna go wash up. Jason went to the bathroom and ran the water from the sink as he stared in the mirror and tried to figure out the reality of himself, where he was and what he'd become. He was having a decent run on the streets. He was recording music with ease and taking care of business at home. As he wiped the last of his wife off his face, he was reminded of the different facets of what business at home was and a promise that he made to Hollis. Jason reached inside his jeans and pulled out the quarter-pound of purple haze that he picked up from Stacky earlier, and the numbers began racing through his head. The 2,800 that the perp was going to bring back was going to be his new set point for his re-up. He had nearly half a pound of Arizona in his safe and well over 50 dime bags that he accumulated by re-ing up quickly. He was sending Bernadette the same amount on a bi-weekly basis that he'd been sending when he was working, and he was handling the bills at home the same way. He rubbed his forehead and tried to figure it out. How many bags, ounces, pounds he needed to flip to walk away from the game as an independent man and winner. He kept searching. 10:38 p.m. the same night. Who is it? Your father. Hold on a sec. Jason wondered what she could be doing that would warrant his daughter to have him waiting at the door. He could hear Bernadette on the other side and instruct Gwinn to open up. What's up? Jason tried to catch Gwen's eyes, but she chose to keep them to herself. Hi, Daddy, she said. How you doing? Fine. She was as blunt as can be, wearing a pair of Frankie B jeans and new white Nikes. Jason made his way to the living room, a few feet away, and turned to find his daughter walking in the other direction. Yo, where's your mother? She coming. Jason took a seat on the couch and looked around his former home. He was anxious to get here just a few minutes earlier. Now there was a side of him that wanted to leave and be anywhere else. Gwinn couldn't have been any less interested in speaking with him, leaving him feeling out of place with the strangest urge to get back to his music. He could hear the deep rumble of Bernadette's company from the master bedroom. A dark feeling of emptiness seized him, and he was reminded of why things didn't work out the first 2 times that him and Bernadette tried to play house. Jason stood to his feet, removed his wallet from his back pocket, and counted out $200. What's up, Jay? Bernadette asked from the other side of the wall in the kitchen. Jason could hear her drop a load of dishes in the sink. He walked over. I'm good. What's up with you? He asked. She looked like she had been smoking. She had a mysterious satisfaction across her face, and her hair was a mess. I can't complain, she answered. He dropped the money on the washing machine and humbled his demeanor. All right, well, there's $200. I'm going to see you as soon as I get some more. He crept past her protruding, ever-tempting backside on his way to the front door. Can you let Gwinn know I got a pair of sneakers? I'll bring them by the next time I come. Jason left the apartment in a daze, unsure of his own emotions. Before pressing for the elevator, he wandered onto the 7th-floor terrace and stared past the metal fence separating the building from the world. The drama going on downstairs had a calming effect on his nerves. He felt alone, but he felt strong, as if the Lord was with him and watching to see if he was going to feel sorry for himself or if he was going to get busy. If it was truly about the music, if that was truly his calling, then he was going to need to turn it up. Better production, tighter, more conscious lyrics, and the hardest part, he had to sell. The music was partially about the money, and the money was partially about fatherhood, or so it seemed at the time. Jason was getting lost in the numbers, the transactions, the bullshit. The money was coming in, but the love wasn't, other than from his customers who were getting more product per dollar from him than with any other weed man. Jason hung his head. Father, please forgive me my sins. Please understand. Yo. A voice coming through on his walkie-talkie on his phone broke the silence on the terrace. Jason removed his phone from his hip and pressed the direct connection button. Yo. Tekk, I need a 2-piece. A 2-piece of them fluffy pillows or 2-piece of them smaller things. Whatever you could do for $20, my dude. All right, I'm on my way. Chapter 2. Don't want to stay here with your irresponsible, dangerous ass. Denise Jordan. Date, October 3rd, 2005. Baby, don't leave me. Don't ever desert me. Jason can hear an angelic voice through the steel and concrete of the building. The first-floor staircase door was cracked open just enough for her melody to seep through from the lobby. I promise my life to you, and I love you always. Jason, Stacky, and Stump had just finished meeting in Stump's third-floor apartment to discuss the possibility of doing an NYCMC tour, and they had trotted down the B staircase to the first floor. Jason looked around a brick pillar in the building lobby to see LaRonda soulfully grooving to one of his favorite old-school tunes on her MP3 player. This bitch, Stacky said as he made his way out the front door. LaRonda was sporting a Carolina blue Pele leather with rhinestones in the back and tight blue jeans. Her hair was pinned in a doobie, and she was looking out of the window in front of the building 55. Jason stopped breathless as she hit a high note that forced him to put both his hands across his chest in admiration. Yo, Tekk, come on, Stacky hollered. LaRonda turned to discover that she had a listener and smiled as she rarely did. You like that? She asked. Oh, I love it. Jason extended his arms playfully to embrace her as she reciprocated, smiling all the more brighter. I love it, he proclaimed. Tekk, come on, man. Stacky pulled back the front door again and yelled. You better catch up with your boys, LaRonda advised. Tekk pulled away from her, still visibly delighted at her ability. Don't nobody control me, sweetie. I move when me or Allah say so. She stepped back and gestured as if impressed. I heard that. You ever been in the studio? Jason asked. Nah, she answered, apparently with regret. Through the side of his visual field, Jason could see Stacky release the grip on the front door. Jason looked deeper into LaRonda. I could use a voice like that. He rubbed his goatee in mellow contemplation. That could open some things up for me. Well, what you trying to do? She asked. 10:41 p.m. the same night. I can't hear you. You got to turn your mic on. Jason yelled at Stump through the soundproof glass in the vocal booth. Stump activated his mic, then continued to locate the point on the track where Jason wanted to begin recording. I said the holy month begins tomorrow. You ready to do this? Stump and Jason were the only people in Stump's 57th Street studio. For the past 5 Wednesday nights, Stump reserved the A block of the studio to finish recording Jason's second album. I'm ready. I need it. I don't believe it's Ramadan already, Jason said as he adjusted his headphones for a better fit. He'd been so buried in recording and running bags of marijuana from point A to point B that he'd been slacking on his prayer routine, his side of the house chores, and he hadn't called Gwinn Jr. in a few weeks. 31 days of manifest self-restraint, putting God first, and discipline in his life was exactly what he needed to get things back into perspective. Seed time. I've been looking forward to Ramadan this year, man. I got a good feeling about it. Stump was smiling like a child at the trackboard. Since they were kids, Stump always embraced the good challenge. I feel like magic could happen in the Ramadan of '05, bro. Like we could do anything. Jason took a sharp mental note of what Stump was saying, as he could tell that God felt like being mysterious this evening. All right, yo, I found a spot. You ready? Stump asked. Let's go, Tekk said. Stump dropped the beat and leaned his thick, solid forearms across the trackboard and nodded his head to the beat. Jason could hear his powerful voice through the headphones, spitting the lyrics that he just recorded. He waited for the break where he would jump back on to punch in a line where he misspoke. Stump raised his hands and began counting down with his fingers. 4, 3, 2, 1. October 13th, 2005. Will the first heat of the girls' 200-meter relay please check in at the scorer's table? Jason stood a few yards away from Hollis in a secluded tunnel in the basement of the armory. For nearly 10 minutes, he'd been glancing back and forth at her as she sat with her head hung and her back against the wall. It was ritualistic for Hollis to steal time for herself before a race. Still, Saturday after Saturday, Jason couldn't help but wonder what ran through her head during these moments. They practiced rigorously for this all summer, the first week of the indoor track season. Hollis was now a senior at Frederick Douglass Academy and was one of the highest-ranked sprinters in the city. There wasn't anyone out there that could seriously contend with FDA in the 4x2. Now was the time to prove it. Hollis still hadn't budged after the public announcement several moments ago. Jason held back for as long as he could, but it was time. You heard the call, baby? He asked. Hollis fired herself to the soles of her New Balance warm-up sneakers and clapped her hands with fiery enthusiasm. I'm ready. Her break in silence was Jason's green light to say everything he'd been holding back for the past few minutes. See it, do it. Boom. Don't take no shit out there. Secure that stick before you really take off. Hug them terms like you missed the hell out of them. Low, then high, then long. Open up that stride and keep it open. You heard? Hollis nodded in comprehension as her father gave her final instructions face to face. Their foreheads pressed ruggedly against one another and their eyes were locked. It's time for some truth and proof out there. Give a good testament. I love you, all right? He concluded. I love you too. Jason kissed his girl on the cheek and watched as he joined a relay team on the track. He knew he'd put enough energy in her for her to mess around and lap somebody. He went back upstairs and sat beside Denise to watch the main event. 8:09 p.m. the same night. Hollis patted down the metallic pins on her father's head before grabbing another section of his locks to retwist it. Turn your head, Daddy, she said. Jason hadn't been asleep since Thursday night and could barely keep his head stable. Hollis was rushing to finish manicuring his locks so she could join her teammates who were celebrating their team and individual victories at One Fish, Two Fish restaurant on Madison Avenue. Jason! Hollis tapped her dad on the side of his shoulder. Ma calling you. Jason, Danny's at the front door for you. He stood up. Hollis picked up her phone and checked the messages that she'd gotten since the last time she checked a few minutes ago. I hope he's not coming here to buy no weed from my house, Jason, Denise said from over the sink, washing dishes. Relax with all that. Danny told me he wanted to ask me something. He dismissed his wife and stepped through the front door, closing it smoothly behind him. What's up? What you need? Yo, Tekk, I got $30. See if you can hook me up, fam. All right, give me 1 minute. Go to the terrace. I told your ass don't come up here. From now on, call me and I'll meet you downstairs. Hollis was still glued to her phone, texting frantically and laughing to herself. Jason went to the closet and dug into his stash in his leather coat. Who you talking to in that damn thing, he asked. Reggie, Ketchmer, Renee, Trisha, and Gwinn. She released her legs from their folded position and took a swig from the glass of Kool-Aid on the floor. Tell Gwinn I said what's up. What's she doing? Yo, G a little thug, Daddy. They both laughed as Jason got Danny's order together on a sneak tip. She stay about to pop off on somebody. That's my girl, Hollis said. Jason smiled. pleased that his youngest showed signs of being the strongest. Try to get her to chill, though. That ain't the way, he said. I be trying to tell her, especially since them Jessica bit. She covered her mouth to excuse her potentially foul language. Sorry, chicks be out there wilding on the east side. Yeah, I know, Jason said as he shoved his loaded fist into his pockets and excused himself. I'll be right back. December 4th, 2005. Jason carefully navigated through the dark Harlem streets. He had to make a drop-off to a customer in the Columbia dorms on 117th. Then he needed to drop a quarter ounce off the Big Rich on Morningside. When he got to 117th, Jason made the transaction with the foreign exchange student at the door and engaged in small talk as to remain civil in business. As he turned to walk away, the girl called out to him in a heavy Indian accent. Hey, Tekk, want to smoke? He pulled out his cell phone to check the time. He was going to be a few minutes late for his second drop-off, but a free blunt meant having to pinch his personal stash even less and a more enjoyable hike to Morningside. He turned around and shrugged his shoulders. Hey, why not? Jason sold 2 CDs on credit and made 4 new weed customers before dipping out. He hadn't walked but 3 blocks before his hands became numb from the temperature. He kept his legs moving. The thoughts flashing through his mind was his only form of entertainment. This was where he was tested foremost, the long, lonely walks through the night in search of the Lord's bounty. Last year at this time of night, he would have been showered, fed, and laying beside his wife. He was now playing a game where he didn't know what laid around the next corner. He didn't know who was listening or watching him, but it didn't matter. He had to keep playing. Jason knew God was watching, so he forfeited speaking the words. He fought the feelings of ingratitude that used to keep him in trouble with God, although he did have some questions in the depths of his soul for the Creator, who could put him and his kids in a big house with wealth and abundance just by declaring it. Jason just kept walking. He just kept pushing on. Across his face was the rigor of his test, not despair, but a focused grit. He could but only hope that somehow, through the burden that he took on his shoulders, that his children would stay warm, because outside, it was freezing. Jason cut down 121st Street and completely lost his cool as he saw 3 beat-walking cops walking in his direction. He pulled his Yankee-fitted lower and sunk his hands into the chest pockets of his ski coat. As he neared the trio, he noticed the heavy black officer staring him down. He wanted to stare back, but the contraband he was toting made that a bad idea. He walked on and figured that the joke was on them until, Yo, come here, man. Jason turned around and checked the officer. Yo, who you talking to? I ain't no little fucking kid. The other male officer stepped up into Jason's personal space, and a female officer reached for her utility belt. What you want? Jason asked in a tamed roar. You smell like weed. You carrying drugs on you? Jason grew nervous and began speaking without thinking. No, I ain't carrying no drugs on me. Get out my face. Without the slightest hesitation, all 3 officers began closing in. Do me a favor, put your hands up against the wall and spread your legs for me. For what? Do it now, one of the officers yelled before drawing his weapon. 2:13 p.m. the next day. Jason could see Morgan Calm sitting in Marg's Durango when he got out of Central Bookings. Jason took a second to secure his belt, which he had got back after being processed, then walked over. Margot lowered the stereo and pulled from his cigarette as if it were essential before he addressed Jason, who was sitting in the back seat in exhaustion. Hey, black man, how long you gonna be doing this weed shit for? Margot asked. I can't call it right now, Margs, Jason answered, annoyed at the fact that he knew his plans were gonna look silly after this. He didn't bother looking at his one-time mentor as he elaborated. I need to at least get this album finished so I could shop at the record labels. He leaned his head against the frostbitten window and gazed out at the heavy snowfall. I don't know, man. If something don't develop soon, I'll go get a job wherever I can, I guess. Well, why's the album taking so long? Margot asked as he started the engine. Jason smiled, finding a degree of calm therein. Margot, trust me. At this point, nobody wants this project to be done more than me, brother. Margot looked at Jason through the rearview mirror. I got people coming in the shop all the time asking for your shit, your CD. That's respect. That's love. Harlem needs you as another voice, a stand-up shining testament. They don't need another fucking weed man. You just need to put the same energy and commitment into your music as you do hustling some shit that's gonna cost you your freedom. Jason didn't bother responding. He sat in thought as the Jeep made its way back to Harlem World. You know MSG about to shut down soon. Yep. After 6 years, the man finally caught up with me. The man got his foot on all our necks, don't he? Calm ass in a barely legible grumble. The fellas sat in silence for the rest of the ride, each person in his own head, each one trying to figure it out. 2 weeks later. You're not Muslim. Jason didn't feel like entertaining any foolery on such a busy day. Okay, he said, placing the Holy Quran in his hand on the counter and pulling out his wallet to pay for the turkey and cheese sandwiches, sodas, and cigars for him, Stump, and LaRonda. The small brown-skinned brother seated atop the deep freezer pushed on. I saw you on the train reading the Bible. Jason dropped his head back and took a second to breathe before he turned to engage his brother, who felt the need to judge him. You know your Quran, bro? Don't bullshit me either, because I read it from cover to cover several times, Jason said, growing intense. What do you mean, do I know it? I can recite most surahs word for word in Arabic. Yeah, and many Christians can recite many Bible verses. Many Jews can recite the Torah. He pointed to Stump. And many niggas like me and him can recite whole Tupac albums word for word. But have you processed the word of Allah? Have you lived by it and alongside it, demonstrating utmost faith therein? Have you grown with the word so you can testify to its authenticity? The Holy Quran is a history book of and a guidance for man. The Torah and New Testament are more ancient accounts of our history. Preach, brother, Stump yelled facetiously as he took seat on top the egg crate in front of the store. Jason turned to him. No, I gotta testify, brother. No bullshit. God has been too kind. He's been too magnificent. He's been too solid in his promises for me not to testify. Jason caught a glance of LaRonda and noticed that she was no longer lost in her electronic conversation on her phone. He continued, You show a lack of faith in your Lord when you do shit like this, Ak. The Holy Quran confirms the previous scripture, the Bible, the Holy Torah, and the prophethood of the brothers, Moses, David, Joseph, Jesus, Abraham, Noah. The Holy Quran is a book that leads to peace in one's life. But you can't have a disposition. You can't go into it thinking that you know what peace is. That's how men ended up restricting things from their lives that God never intended to be restricted. That's how men ended up befriending vowed enemies and creating static between their natural brothers and sisters. I walk a path that the Lord made. Through my music, I actively engage the enemy, the devil. But you see me, my hair, my clothes, my Quran, my Bible, and parts of my action, and you don't trust me. Muhammad chuckled, looking as if he wanted Jason to just pay for his goods and go about his business. But he carried on. But know that I'm watching you also, and I don't trust your ass either. That's why I stand on the front lines of the battle, because they killing us out here. Police is shooting my brothers 50 times because they seeing shit on them that looks like guns. They've been killing your brothers and sisters in the Middle East because they're supposedly seeing these same weapons. Jason reached in his back pocket and removed a miniature version of the New Testament Bible therein and placed it next to his Quran on the counter. These are my weapons right here, brother, so you shouldn't feel threatened by me. What I'm looking for cannot be achieved by hurting you. When Jason walked out of the store, he lent an open ear to the stark silence behind him. 2nd Avenue was in front of him, and the streets, seemed to embrace him better. He, Stump, and LaRonda were coming from one of Stump's friendly studios in Stanley Isaac's projects on 93rd Street, where the three of them just recorded their first track together. When they were leaving Isaac's, LaRonda ran into several Jessica sisters who bought a few dimes off of Tekk, and one of them purchased his first CD, which he was now carrying with him everywhere he went. After the studio session, Jason convinced Stump to walk with him to 110th Street to take LaRonda home. From there, they caught a cab to Grant. Jason's second album, which was appropriately titled The New Testament, was just about halfway complete. He was going to redo the vocals for the album's 6th track at Stump's apartment studio. The two decided to knock out a quick prayer before recording. Stump was in the bathroom making wudu. Jason's eyes caught a hold of a picture behind him before he was saved. He smiled as he pulled the We Got Next magazine from Stump's box of old mixtapes near the couch. A skinny, angry, perpetually lost soul he was. In the picture, he wore a dark, wavy haircut, a white gold chain, and he projected a menacing aura. Jason read the caption across the front. I ain't dead yet. The prodigal son back in the booth after suffering multiple gunshot wounds. Get out the motherfucking car. Jason recalled riding down Fifth Avenue with 125 grams of soft white stashed in a coffee container and a trunk and a stash box. He was planning on getting 10 grams off a stacky at $35 per and jumping into the game full throttle. That plan flew out of the window when robber crews stuck their machine gun barrels in Stacky's E-Class window. Hurry up, I'ma blow your motherfucking head off. Oh, you think I'm bullshitting? Jason could hear Stump leaving the bathroom and placed the magazine back in the box that he removed it from. They passed each other in the living room. It was Jason's turn to cleanse himself for the Lord. From his reflection in the medicine cabinet mirror, Jason found amusement and a sort of ticklish humor. He hung his head and shook his front row of dreads suspended from his scalp. He looked back in the mirror, smiling all the more. Nazi dreadlocks, he said. His content and peace seemed to be too real, too right, and for some reason, he forced himself to continue reminiscing on the night he and Stacky almost lost their lives. Jason awoke from a 40-day coma in Mount Sinai Hospital. He took a series of cat naps before recollecting on where he was and how he got there. When he finally awoke for good, Hollis was applying a light coat of Vaseline on his lips. What you doing? He asked. Your lips were dry, Hollis said as she backed away. Frail and weak, Jason slid into his slippers at the foot of his bed and made his way into the bathroom. He caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror and became lost in the image. He had a full, rugged beard, and his wavy hair was now a small, untamed afro. Oh my God, what happened to me? Jason swung his locks to the back of his head so he could scrub his face. He thoroughly rinsed his right arm from his elbow to his wrist and squeezed the blood in his veins, flexing the muscles in his forearm. He washed behind his ears, his neck, his feet, then he went to join his brother in prayer. By the time Jason got to his prayer mat, Stump was standing upright before the Lord on his respective mat. He lined his left foot up with Stump's right, and Stump made the call of prayer. Allahu Akbar. Stump needed to complete a make-up prayer, and therefore he stayed in the cut after their joint prayer was complete. Jason sat patiently and waited for him to finish before disturbing the peace. When Stump began twirling his prayer beads through his fingers, indicating that he was just about done, Jason stood up and crept over to the computer. He pulled up Pro Tools to cue up the music. Yes, sir, Stump said enthusiastically as he stood to his feet and folded his mat. Drop that beat. Jason pressed play, then went into his creative zone, wandering off, piecing lyrics together in his mental. Stump walked over to the speakers and turned the volume to a deafening blast. Let's go. 8:23 p.m. the same night. Did you get arrested last week? Denise asked. Jason became instantly agitated. He turned away from her and walked further into the bedroom. You obviously already know the answer to that question, Denise. You're not just asking for no reason. You know what? She slammed a tandem of blouses into an open suitcase on the bed. Jason laughed, finding amusement in his wife's unfolding befuddlement. I'm glad everything is such a big fucking joke to you. We'll see how funny things are when you're 50 and alone. I'm gonna be alone when I'm 50? He asked inquisitively as he continued to watch her frantically pack her belongings. Do you know 2 of my coworkers saw the police arresting you last week? Do you have any idea how embarrassed I was trying to explain that shit? So what? Fuck them bitches. Their opinions ain't gonna matter if I don't come up with my half of the rent. I'm not sticking around long enough to find out the answer to that question. What? His broad chest and powerful voice weren't enough to shake her. She knew he wasn't gonna lay a hand on her. Consequently, he quickly employed a different approach and a much softer tone as he took a seat on the bed. Denise, I got knocked for a couple of bags of weed. You acting like the feds looking for me or something. Where you going? You got fired from your job and didn't tell me. You start selling weed out of my house. You still got this big-ass gun in here that I've been asking you to get rid of for years. She filled with a wave of frustration. Jason could tell by the way that she let it out that she was seriously done. I'm leaving, Jason. And where's my daughter going? He rose and demanded. My daughter's coming with me. His adrenaline boiled. His face became a canvas of terror. Bitch, you not taking my daughter away from me. Daddy, Hollis stepped in the room from her eavesdropping post in the hallway. She don't want to stay here with your crazy, irresponsible, dangerous ass. You have completely lost your mind. What? Daddy, I'm going to come see you on the weekends and we'll talk on the phone. Hollis pushed on in an attempt to pacify him. Jason tried to look his daughter in the eyes, but couldn't due to pending tears. Hollis, you can't leave me. You have to finish your training. She can't teach you the way I can. She don't. Denise laughed as Jason tried to gather his thoughts. Hollis held her hands out, trying to calm him down, which broke him and forced the tears from his eyes. He took a look around. On Denise's face was the tale of his defeated cause. He just knew that this particular battle was already lost. In some small way, he released his need for physicality through the holler in his voice. Go then. He made his way toward the studio in the next room. Get the fuck out of here, he said before slamming the door. Jason remained in the studio for the following 17 hours. When he came out, he found his family, the stability in his life, gone. He didn't leave the apartment for the next 3 days.